Good evening, football fans. Big Al here on this Wednesday, November 22nd, 2023. And this is a look at the latest college football playoff rankings, plus the Week 13 television schedule across college football with all the announcers from every game. Okay. All right, give me just a second here. All right. So I'm on ESPN's website, and real soon here they'll give us the college football playoff rankings for going into week 13. After that, we'll look at the television schedule for the final regular season week in college football. All right. And again, we start at the bottom of the rankings and we work our way up. So instead of starting at number 1, we're starting at number 25. And here they are. Okay, so number 25 is Liberty with a record of 11-0. Last week they beat Massachusetts, and this week they traveled to El Paso to face UTEP. New at number 24 is Clemson at 7-4. Of course, they defeated North Carolina, faced the South Carolina Gamecocks. Columbia. Number 23 is Tulane at 10-1. They beat Florida Atlantic. Now they got a big conference game with UTSA. Number 22 is NC State at 8-3. They won at Virginia Tech last week, and this week they host North Carolina. Down to number 21 is Tennessee at 7-4. Of course, losing big to Georgia. Now they'll host Vanderbilt. Oklahoma is in at number 8-3. They beat Houston Road. This week they'll host BYU. Is Kansas State, also at 8-3. They, of course, beat in-state rival Kansas. Now they'll host Iowa State. Number 18 is Notre Dame, up a spot from last week. They are 8-3. Blew out Wake Forest, and they'll close the regular season at Stanford. Number 17 is Iowa, 9-2 on the season. Won a tight one against Illinois. Now they'll face the Nebraska Cornhuskers. 16 is Oregon State at 8-3. They played Washington real tough. They ended up dropping 5 spots despite that. And they get the Oregon Ducks. More on where the moment. Number 15 is Arizona, 8-3. They won big over Utah, and this week they'll play for the Territorial Cup against Arizona. Number 14 is LSU at 8-3. They won big over Georgia State, and this week they'll host Texas A&M in their regular season finale. Number 13 is Oklahoma at 9-2. They over BYU, and they'll host TCU. Number 12 is Ole Miss, also 9-2, beating UL Monroe to a pulp. This week they visit Mississippi State. Number 11 is Penn State at 9-2. They blew away Rutgers, and this week they visit East Lansing to face Michigan State. Number 10 is Louisville at 10-1. Won a top Miami. This week they host Kentucky. Number 9 is Missouri at 9-2. They beat Florida by a couple points, and this week they are at Arkansas. Number 8 is Alabama 10-1. They, of course, played a non-conference game and won over Chattanooga. Now they'll face off with Auburn in the Number 7 is Texas, also at 10-1. They beat Iowa State last week, and this weekend they'll host Texas Tech. Number 6 is Oregon, 10-1. Blew out Arizona State in Tempe, and this week they'll host Oregon State. Number 5 is Florida State, down last week at 11-0. They beat up North Alabama, and this week they're headed to the Swamp to face the Florida Gators. Number 4 is Washington, 11-0. They beat Oregon State 22-20, and this week they'll host Washington State. Number 3 is Michigan at 11-0. Won a tight one against Maryland for their 1,000th victory in program history. And they'll face the team that's at number 2, and that's Ohio State, also 11-0. They blew apart Minnesota, and now the Buckeyes and Wolverines will square off in Ann Arbor on Saturday. And the number 1 team in the country is still Georgia, 11-0. Beat up Tennessee, and this week they are at Georgia Tech. So that's the college football playoff rankings entering week number 13. Now let's take a look at the week 13 college football television schedule and the announcers for every game this week. All right, my computer's slow. Here we go. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. My computer is acting slow. Week actually began last night with a couple games from the Mid-American Conference. We'll go through those games first. Bowling Green at Western Michigan aired on ESPNU last night at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. The announcers were Connor Onion and Aaron Murray. And then on ESPN2, they aired Eastern Michigan at Buffalo at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific with Max Schick and Dustin Fox. There is a game on Thanksgiving tomorrow night at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific on ESPN, and that's number 12 Ole Miss at Mississippi. Rogers and Colby Bellick. Then we got a number of games on Black Friday. 6 of those games will start at 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. ABC will televise Miami at Boston College with Matt Berry and Dan Mullen. CBS has number 17 Iowa at Nebraska with Tom McCarthy and Ross Tucker. Fox will air TCU at number 13 Oklahoma with Tim Brando and Spencer Tillman. ESPN, it's Memphis at Tempe Alter and Renee Eagle Gila. On ESPNU, it's Toledo at Central Michigan with Sean Kenny and Craig Halbert. And on CBS work is Ohio at Akron, Carter Blackburn and Adam Renneman. At 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific, ABC, it's UTSA at number 23 Tulane with Clay Matvick and Rod Gilmore. And on CBS Sports Network, it's Utah State at New Mexico with Chris Lewis and Robert at Eastern 1 p.m. Pacific on CBS. It's number 9 Missouri at Arkansas with Rich Waltz and Aaron Taylor. And on at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, Air Force at Boise State, Denheli and Petrus. Then at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific on ABC, it's Texas Tech at number 7 Texas with Dave Dvorak and Tom Luke. And on NBC, it's number 11 Penn State at Michigan State with Noah Eagle and Todd Blackledge. Final game of the night, 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 p. Pacific on Fox. Number 16 Oregon State, Oregon, Jason Benetti and Brock Heward. And this brings us to Saturday. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 games kicking off at 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific as we begin the early afternoon portion of the schedule. ABC, it's Kentucky at number 10 Louisville, Joe Tessitore, and Jesse Palmer. On Fox's Big Noon Saturday, it's The Game. Number 2 Ohio State at number 3 Michigan, Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt. ESPN Texas A&M at number 14 LSU with Bob Wischusen and Robert Gerd. On ESPN2, it's Navy at SMU, Roy Philpott and Roddy Jones. On FS1, it's Houston at UCF, Eric Collins and Devin Gardner. On ESPNU, Troy at Southern Miss, Mike Corey and Barrett Brooks. On BTN, it's Indiana at Purdue, Chris Volsters and Brock Vereen. On the ACC network, Pittsburgh at Duke with George Sedano and Orlando Franklin. On CBS Sports Network, Miami of Ohio at Ball State. No broadcast team has been announced. And then you have 3 games streaming on ESPN+. Northern Illinois at Kent State with David Wilson and Ryan Kavanaugh. And then the other 2 games, Connecticut at Massachusetts and Middle Tennessee at Sam Houston, have no broadcast teams announced for those 2 games. Also streaming on ESPN+ at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific is Florida Atlantic at Rice with Richard Cross and Legger Duzable. On NBC at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, it's Southern at Grambling. No broadcast team has been in for this game. On the CW, it's Wake Forest at Syracuse with James Bates. And then you got 3 more games streaming on ESPN+ at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. Tulsa at East Carolina with James Wesleyan and Reggie Walker. And then the other 2 games, Georgia State at Old Dominion and UAB at North Texas. There are no broadcast teams announced for those games. At 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Pacific on the Pac-12 network, it's Colorado with Roxy Bernstein and Lincoln Kennedy. Also at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Pacific on Silver State Sports and Mountain West Conference Digital is San Jose at UNLV, and there is no broadcast announced for this game either. Likewise, for the pair of games on ESPN+ at 3 Eastern, 12 noon Pacific, Louisiana Monroe at Louisiana Lafayette, and Western Kentucky at Florida International. Again, there are no broadcast teams announced for those 2 games. Now to the late afternoon portion of the schedule. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 games kicking off at 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. On ABC, it's BYU at number 20 Oklahoma State with Anish Shroff and Andre Ware. On the Home Depot, as on C, it's the Iron Bowl. Number 8 Alabama at Auburn. Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson. On ESPN, it's number 15 Arizona at Arizona State with Mark Jones, Louis Riddick, and Quint Kessenich. On ESPN2, James Madison at Coastal Carolina with Beth Mowins and Kirk Morrison. On S1 is Wisconsin at Minnesota, Jeff Levering and Mark Helfrich. On ESPNU, it's Georgia Southern at Appalachian State with Courtney Lyle and Hudson Mason. On the SEC Network, it's Vanderbilt at number 21 Tennessee with Dave Neal and Derek Mason. And you'll have 2 games of interest on BTN. Some will see Northwestern at Illinois with Corey Provis and Jake Butt. Others will see Maryland at Rutgers with Connor Onion and Matt Millen. On the ACC Network, it's Virginia Tech at Virginia with Chris Cotter and Mark Herzlich. On CBS Sports Network, it's number 25 Liberty at UTEP. Alex Del Barrio and Taylor McCartway. And streaming on ESPN Plus, it's Arkansas State at Marshall, and no broadcast team has been announced. At 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific on Fox, it's Washington State at number 4 Washington with Jason Benetti and Brock Hume. And streaming on ESPN Plus, Jacksonville State at New Mexico State, and there is no broadcast team announced for that game. Now to the evening portion of the schedule. You've got 4 games at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. On ESPN, it's number 5 Florida State at Florida with Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit. On FS1 is West Virginia at Baylor, Alex Faust and Petros Papadakis. On the Pac-12 Network, it's number 18 Notre Dame at Stanford, Ted Robinson and Yogi Roth. On NFL Network, South Alabama at Texas State, Jason Ross Jr. and Tika Jackson. Then you have 4 more games at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. On ABC's Saturday Night Football, it's number 1 Georgia at Georgia Tech with Sean McDonough and Greg McElroy. On ESPN2, it's Kansas at Cincinnati, John Schifrin and Rocky Boyman. On ESPNU, it's Charlotte at South Florida, Drew Carter and Dustin Fox. On the SEC Network, it's number 24 Clemson at South Carolina, Taylor Zarzar at Stinchcombe. At 8 p.m. East Pacific on Fox, it's Iowa State at number 19 Kansas State, Tim Brando and Spencer Tillman. On the ACC Network, it's North Carolina at number 22 NC State, West Durham and Tim Hasselbeck. On CBS Sports Network at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, is Wyoming at Nevada, John Sadak and Randy Cross. At 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific on ESPN, California at UCLA with Dave Fleming and Brock Osweiler. On FS1, Fresno State at San Diego State, Guy Haberman and Will Blackman. And the final game of the night is at 11:59 p.m. Eastern, 8:59 p.m. Pacific on Hawaii pay-per-view and Team One Sports. And that's Colorado State at Hawaii. And there is no broadcast team for that game. So there it is, folks. The latest college football playoff rankings and 13 television schedule. back in about an hour or so as I give you week 12 picks in the NFL. So make sure you join me for that. In the meantime, like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Every time I go live. Big Al signing off. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the Peace out.